morning, and welcome to another edition of the Mark Moses Show podcast. As we're always broadcasting from the Anidjar and Levine Accident Attorney Studios. Take back control of your life. Yeah, this is key. Call them today, 1-800-747-FREE. That's 1-800-747-3733. It's Anidjar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Joining me right now here to kick off the week is my great friend from multiple publications here in Central Florida. He is Kyle Nash. We got much to discuss. Kyle, how you doing today, buddy?
Feeling good, man. I made it through celebrating Mother's Day with my mom and my wife, so we're back on track.
Yeah, very nice, man. I thought I'd give you a couple days off before I'd start hammering you with questions. Okay?
I appreciate that. It helped me get prepared for Sunday.
Yeah, because last week was very hectic. It was where Orlando Magic get eliminated, and then they fire the coach. Then the fans are fighting over who should be the next coach, which I appreciate. All right, I was one of them as well. So I want to start with you because you cover the team. You're there at the Kia Center day in and day out. You were there for the whole Jamahl Mosley experience. I want your opinion. We will start with this. Why do you think, in your eyes, Jamahl Mosley was fired as the coach of the Magic?
It was a decision that was made long before the playoffs, in my opinion. And while it's very real that had the Magic closed the deal against the Pistons, we would probably, certainly for one more round, but the opportunity for the next season to have Jamahl Mosley as the coach did exist. Obviously, the meltdown in Game 6 made that quite impossible, certainly from a PR standpoint. I think the element that had them decided, Mark, was there were times when the feeling was the team quit on Jamahl Mosley, right? Now, at day's end, I don't think that parting ways with Jamahl Mosley fixes the problem. I think it's a half measure, but there is also, in fair to do both sides of that argument fairly, there is an opportunity where both teams get better, right? Maybe Jamahl Mosley, with some of the lineups he's put out there, we've talked about this in the past, Mark, there's an element of paranoia surrounding health and injury, and who can blame Jamahl Mosley for having that in the back of his mind, for dealing with that with the Magic as long as he did. When he gets hired somewhere else to be a coach, because I think you and I are both confident that will happen, when that happens, that demon can be exercised from his mind, and hopefully whoever the Magic have as a new coach can also get past the injury history and the frustration, because at least in their minds, I feel like, granted I'm speculating here, but I feel like at least in their minds, both the Magic organization and Jamahl Mosley's, they feel like they are victims of circumstance, with injuries having so much to do with the struggles. Whether that's the actual case or not is something we'll examine, I'm sure, but I think that's kind of my breakdown of what happens and what I think could moving forward.
Was the final nail in the coffin for this team that Game 6 second half when they scored 19 points? They had no answer. They just let it happen, and there was no leadership on the bench, on the floor. Was that the final nail in the coffin?
I think it was, and say what you will about the leadership, Mark. It's not like the Magic didn't get any open shots in, 23, 24 straight misses. Listen, Jamahl Mosley isn't the architect of them putting up enough bricks to, build new housing downtown, okay? Like, this is not on Jamahl Mosley. The players got to make shots. And look what happened when they did. Now, granted, it's a lot to ask Desmond Bane to make 50% or more from three, but he did it in 2 playoff games, and that was a big reason why they were up 3-1. We've talked about this on the show before, Mark. I don't know how much Jamahl Mosley is really the problem. I think what we're going to find out, unless somehow you land somebody that can both capture the defensive essence of what Jamahl Mosley is, while also being able to re-spark a Magic offense that, albeit successfully improved compared to last year's numbers, is still not a juggernaut and a force yet. I don't know what the move is, man.
Should the front office also be blamed for the construction of this team that fell short again in the playoffs?
Yeah, I think there's an element of that to be said, right? And say what you will for, I listen, I'm on record out there in print about what Anthony Black could do going into his second year with the Magic, right? So even back at going to 2024, right? And sometimes he's there and sometimes he's not. But even if you don't consider Anthony Black a miss, which I don't yet, I don't consider Tristan Da Silva a miss, but what about all the other things going on the bench there where they were basically not a factor? Throwing the bag at a number of guys that you're paying some guys like they're great players when they're only good players, right? The Jonathan Isaacs of the world, who, again, going back to the health crisis,
play.
that
He doesn't play.
Right.
I told that to other Magic reporters. I'll say it to you. That everyone kept upgrading. Oh, he's upgraded. Maybe he plays. He doesn't play.
Right.
Just tell me when he's going to play on the court, and then we'll find out. Dude, this is my thought, and I want your take on this.
Mm-hmm.
If they win that game 6, I know it's woulda, coulda, shoulda,
Mm-hmm.
but they break through. They learn to win as a team in the playoffs. They win a playoff series. Maybe that changes everything, but they didn't. That's the reality. And that's why the coach got fired. It's a woulda, coulda, shoulda, right? If they win that, maybe Franz comes back the next round. All these things are going on in my mind. And you know what? The Magic are going to have to sit on that idea for 12 straight months until we get back to April and May. What is your thoughts, Kyle?
No, I don't think you're too far off there, Mark. I would even offer this too for those that are out there in droves, national media, Magic fans, and otherwise. I'm going to say the controversial thing. Franz's injury wasn't the factor. Maybe that's something to do with Game 7. You can make that argument, but Mark, they got up 24 points without Franz Wagner. Franz Wagner isn't the problem here. Now, granted, to your point, maybe he would have made it back for the next series, where a lot of speculation, at least while they were in 3-1, was, whether it would have been at the time Toronto or Cleveland was going to be an interesting matchup. But at day's end, Mark, Franz Wagner is just another excuse. And to me, if you really believe that it was Franz Wagner's injury that rerouted what went on, how on earth do you fire Mose at that point? And that's why I say what I say about the decision being made even before the playoffs started, right? The Celtics did something very similar in losing Jason Tatum and then getting eliminated. Now, obviously, Joe Mazzulla has a little bit more credit, having pulled in rings and done his part from there, so he's given that grace. I'm not implying Mazzulla should be fired. That's not what I'm saying. But that is a similar situation, such as we saw with the Magic deal. And, by the way, the Celtics were not playing a number 1 seeded team. No,
they were not. I have not watched any playoffs. I'm still angry about that Game 6. I kind of like, bomb in once in a while. I saw Wemby throw that WWE style elbow last night. I saw that play. It was just so hard. It was so disheartening being in that building for that Game 6. I mean, and that, it's funny. They're going to talk about that game for the next 20 to 30 years. Like one of the worst losses ever. Dude, I'm in there and I'm like, they only scored 12 points. They only have 14 points. They scored 8 points in the fourth quarter. All right. We need to move on.
It's like you're still trauma dumping, Mark.
I am. All right. We've heard names being thrown out.
Yeah.
I think it feels like you have the former Gator coach, Billy Donovan, as your front runner, just with the rumor mill. Then I'm hearing Tom Thibodeau, Mike Budenholzer, all these names, Dusty May, the coach at Michigan, right? What type of coach they need? Forget names. What do they need in your eyes to get them to the next level?
First things first, as much as I like Tom Thibodeau as a coach, let me be clear. Thibodeau is not a fit here. With a team that has this many injury concerns and a dude who will unironically answer a question, hey, why did your stars get 48 minutes tonight? Because there wasn't overtime. Like, I appreciate the play to win the game, approach that Tibbs has, but he's not a fit with the Magic. I don't mind that his name's thrown out there. He is a great coach. He is a coach with a resume. I don't think he's a fit here for Orlando to overcome this situation, especially with what I've already said about the health psyche thing. Billy Donovan makes regional sense. I'll be honest, I haven't tracked enough Bulls basketball to really know if he's the right fit. But another name I'm hearing that's interesting, I don't know if I would make, and the Dusty May thing is a good speculation, a good thing to throw at the wall. I'm not necessarily mad at that either. The other name I'm hearing thrown out there is Sam Cassell, the former Houston Rockets point guard / Sixers assistant. And, there's something to be said for him having gotten to the championship as a player, for him having done the work with working with Tyrese Maxey with Philly, and those two things, the championship experience and, the practice development. One could wonder how he could further elevate perhaps a Jalen Suggs or an Anthony Black or even a Franz Wagner. That's a very interesting concept to me.
That is intriguing. And it's interesting you bring up former guard, help develop guards. We need help developing our guards. That was the Cliff Notes version I just heard.
You nailed it, Mark Moses. You nailed it.
Okay. Right. This is very key. Whoever you get as the next coach, does the front office still have to make some moves this offseason to upgrade this basketball team?
Well, and that's the tough part, right? And this is why the front office should be blamed, not necessarily for losing to the Pistons, but now you listen, you put all the chips in the table, and it's not the Desmond Bane train that's the problem. The Tyus Jones thing, you might still have some capital, but that experiment having abysmally failed was its own damage. And I get it. Oh, but Kyle, all the first round picks for Desmond Bane. You would put Desmond Bane back at this point? There are arguments to be made that for elements of the year, this was Desmond Bane's team. And by the way, in enhancing all of the guards, Mark, I think Paolo gets more confidence to attack the lane because when he does kick it out, he's more likely to get the assist because somebody hits the shot on the outside, right? We've watched Joker, Nikola Jokic, make a career of having triple doubles as a big man, and one of them being an assist because he kicks out when he gets collapsed upon, right? I think the Magic need to lean into Paolo doing that. I've been saying that for the past 2 seasons, and guard enhancement such that it is helps in that process. Now, the front office making moves, what moves can you make? I don't know that you have anybody that has a contract that another team would be able to pick up, especially considering, right, would you take Jalen Suggs' contract for the fact that, he doesn't have the most important availability? Same with Franz Wagner. Would you take Paolo's contract at this point, knowing that he's still trying to develop and trying to be an outside shooter when he is trying, the better usage, air quotes, would be as an interior threat? Not to saying he can't do it. He did it a couple times on the Magic's way out, but by the same token, there were too many times too where he was trying to force shots and not take it to the hole. Do you want to do it? It's less about the Magic trying to find a deal, but instead finding buyers who will make one with them at this point, considering their cap situation.
You're keeping your cell phone on at all times for
cool.
phone calls on my I don't care if you're going to the movies. You leave that phone on if people start calling. But look, here's the thing. This goes back to the draft picks over the last couple of years. You're in a playoff series, and Kane is playing a two-way contract guy. He is a starter for your team. He should not look. He's a great guy. He should not be starting for the Magic. He should not and I get it. You had injuries and everything, but some of this is not working. It's not. You can't sell to this fan base, hey, we're going to raise ticket prices. By the way, we're just going to run it back. We're just completely the same team. What? Oh, you mean the team that couldn't score in that second half? And that game's you're going to run that back? Completely honest? No, you can't.
And think about this, Mark, though. What did it take for Weltman to actually make a move in the first place over the past 2 seasons, right? When 2 years ago when they had all the injuries, the opportunity to try to revamp midseason up to the trade deadline, Weltman said no. That was, and I wrote about this myself. That was when the message there was that the front office was saying that season's a bust. We're not worried about that. We're going to put all the chips on the table for this season. Weltman did so in the off season, right? Paid a bunch of guys, paid Jonathan Isaac, paid Wendell Carter Jr.,
paid Suggs. Well,
Suggs, Franz, and Paolo, all of them got their cash. Not saying you shouldn't have done that, but now at this point, you're handcuffed. I kind of questioned Jonathan Isaac because then even he had health concerns. It wasn't Markelle Fultz bad, but it was pretty bad.
I think about when they took on Cleveland 2 years ago and they got to that game 7. I was very optimistic, okay, this team is going to get better over the next 2 years. It didn't happen. It did not. They're stuck in this first round purgatory right now. And look, that's why Mosley lost his job. And I like Mosley. I liked him. I did. Yeah. But
one person has said that Mosley's a bad guy. Let me be clear.
You know what? This reminds me of the Knicks right now. The Knicks were in the Eastern Conference Finals last year with Thibodeau. They were right there, and they should never have lost to Indiana. They fired Tibbs, and now they've had to wait a year to get. So now they're red hot. They're probably going to be out for 10 days. They're going to be back in the Eastern Conference Finals, but I'm not throwing them flowers. They got to get to the finals. Like this, it's the joke. I told this to my dad the other day. The NBA players hate this time of year. They hate it. And I go, why do they hate it? Because they have to play now. No more load management. You know what I mean? No more, I'm not going to play. No. You got to play now, and people are going to be critical of you. You got to play basketball.
I'll say this. Your point you make about the Knicks, Mark, with Tibbs is actually exactly what the Magic have to do, though, right? The Knicks got rid of Tibbs because they needed a new approach. I wasn't necessarily air quotes for the firing, but I understood what it was. It's really the same kind of thing with the Magic. I don't know. I don't think even. I'll even go here. Firing Mosley doesn't solve the problem in and of itself. It's all about what you replace him with. And, give the Knicks credit. They found a guy that changed the tone of the team and got him back thus far, at least, right? Put them in a position once again to be like, hey, you have another shot at the Eastern Conference Finals. Don't blow it. And maybe if you're lucky, somehow you won't have to face Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I know. Okay, it's like that game 7 at Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
The game starts, Paolo has 12 points, Detroit has 11 points. And you're like, wow, this is really cool. No, this is not good. No, you can't do 1 against 5. They're going to switch it up. We're going to find out. You know what I love about this conversation? Talk about it for the next 12 months. Okay.
Yeah, right.
For content. Let's end with this. And I appreciate coming on. All right. You were there. You've been doing it all season. Orlando football. They win again. What was it? 24-23?
Yeah.
What happened yesterday, buddy, to the Storm?
Man, listen, first of all, I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to shout out the Storm Surge podcast because it's been fun following this team, right? And listen, I know it was a gritty win. By the way, John Rice Plumlee sighting for the Houston Gamblers, who had a touchdown in the game coming in off the bench. The news I had was he was going to start, but whatever. He got in there, did the thing. It's good to see him playing live football action. Anyways, but in particular to the Storm, what happened exactly was the defense handled business, right? The Storm's biggest, and I'll say air quotes, problem is that they rely entirely on big plays to do great things, right? There might be only 1 or 2 games where they were actually executing drives where they chip away at the opponents. One of them was the Louisville game I think they had here because they played Louisville back-to-back a while back. But the punchline, Mark, this defense is a tough bunch of guys. And as much as Dean Blandino had probably the single worst officiating review I have seen in the UFL this year, by implying a guy getting blocked in the back into the returner is still a foul because the guy had the opportunity to regather himself. I'm going to need help with that one, Dean. I'm sorry. But at days end, the defense held strong with back-to-back garbage calls and still won by a single point. Not to say the Gamblers didn't have their opportunities, not to say that any part of the Orlando Storm team was perfect, but they needed to sneak by a win to stop it from being 3 straight because it is getting to be quite the gathering, quite the pool in the standings, Mark.
Is this a team that can contend for a championship in their first year?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If for a first-year franchise, they came out, went 4-0, Mark. That should tell you an awful lot right there. And I mentioned the Louisville team. Oh, that's just another new franchise. That team was good. They even stopped the winning streak of the DC Defenders, Mark, this past weekend. I think it was Friday night, who were on a 5-game tear themselves, who the Storm, by the way, have to play in back-to-back games to close the season. That's a big deal, obviously. But now currently in the standings, the Storm are ahead of the Defenders. I think they're second, right behind the Battlehawks, Coach Anthony Beck's former team, by the way. Storylines all over the place, man. The WWE can't compete with this.
You know what I like? Okay, so when we were prepping for this conversation, I wrote to you, can this team go to the playoffs? But what I did is, to mess with you, I asked, can they win a championship? Right?
I said what I said, Mark Moses.
I thought I'd throw that at you. Not bad. How can we check out your podcast for the Storm?
Yeah, so the Storm Surge podcast is, of course, on YouTube and all the major podcatchers. And if it's somewhere that you want it to be, just let me know. They're at the SOTG on any of the socials, and we'll get it there as well. But yeah, me and Brian Paul, a.k.a. BP, break down all sorts of stuff throughout the week. We've had players on, Fedarius Payne and Chris Rowland. Shouts to both. who came on and had a lot of fun times. And there's some great stories from these guys here that you don't really get anywhere else that covers the Storm. So make sure you check that out.
I'm intrigued, like a home game moving forward where it might be like a monsoon with the rain. That could happen with the weather we're getting right now.
Something right out of Any Given Sunday with the Miami Sharks and a monsoon, right?
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. All right, Kyle, thank you so much for coming on. Have a great week, and I hope I can get you on again.
Hey, honor, joy, and privilege, Mark, as always. Until next time, class dismissed.